we're this close, I'm going to run hard.
Pulls out of gas. Lawson with a blinding restart.
Rudd just stuck it into the total domination again.
Big touch coming down through the trail.
Hell yeah.
Great performances, great finishes from Michigan International Speedway, getting ready for the final practice for the Monster Energy Cup Series. Thanks for joining us here on the NBC Sports app. Cal and Jeff Burton, Steve Letarte with you from high above in our broadcast booth. On pit road and in the garage will be Marty Snyder for this broadcast. We want you to be a part of the broadcast as well. Just tweet us at hashtag NASCAR Fan Practice. Any question that you might have during the broadcast, and we will try to answer those. So again, just include hashtag NASCAR Fan Practice, and we will try to bring you into the broadcast as cars begin to roll. We saw in the first practice this morning cars running around others, making it almost look like race conditions. And now the temperature has come up as we're closing in on a little after 11:30 local here. So the temperature coming up a little closer to what race conditions will be like tomorrow. Green flag supposed to fly just a little after 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
In the first practice, Kyle Busch didn't look all that fast. You know, I watched him trying to run Eric Jones down and just seemed to have a lot of trouble doing it. Curious if they found some speed. I know he was pretty high up on the board, but I think that was with some help. I just didn't think he had the speed that you would expected him to have in that practice.
You threw out the term found speed. Is that we've heard the words trimming out the cars. Is that how you would go about finding that?
Well, the first question back would be how much you wide open. We saw drivers actually get out of the throttle. So where Denny Hamlin is in this position right here, following Kyle Busch into the corner, maybe breathe the throttle just a little bit to make sure the car settles in. So if you're out of the gas, then I don't know if you need to trim the car out and remove downforce. Maybe it's a handling situation. You know, that, to be quite honest, that's a question that used to have an easy answer, and now it is not easy. And when I ask crew chiefs in the garage, I get 3 or 4 different answers. Much like it's a little difficult to know who's good in practice, Marty. It's not just how fast they can run, but actually how perhaps well they get through traffic.
And I think that's the big key, Steve. Talking to a number of crew chiefs here in the garage area, they're all talking about how you can work your way through traffic. The car that everybody thought in the first practice session was the best at that, Martin Truex Jr., he's out there with his Joe Gibbs Racing teammates right now, putting himself in a little bit of traffic, and that's going to be the key. So, Jeff, unfortunately, Steve, being your crew chief, is going to make you get out there, get in the draft, kind of feel things out, and put your car in a position where you've got to work your way through traffic. That's going to be the key tomorrow. The 19 was really good at that this morning.
Yeah, Marty, I think this looks fun. I really do. I think this looks like a fun way to race. And I think handling is going to come into play. That's where that maneuverability is going to be really important. And then, can you clear somebody? So driving underneath someone probably is not that going to be that difficult. But once you get next to them, can you clear them? If not, you're going to be in big trouble because the guys behind you are going to jump on the outside of you and take that spot from you.
First tweet has come in as far as being a part of the broadcast. Bubba 43 fan, do you expect a 10th different driver to win this weekend, and if so, who? And that question, the reason we're throwing that out is because at Watkins Glen, even though Chase Elliott had won earlier, he was the 9th different winner in a row to win in the Monster Energy Cup Series. So even though somebody has won earlier, as long as we continue that streak, could it be possible? And I'll throw out just a couple names. You got Brad Keselowski, Eric Jones. Those are 2 good guys here that potentially could get to victory lane and could be that 10th different winner in 10 weeks.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't expect 9. So I'm not sure it's fair to say I expect 10, but it wouldn't shock me. You mentioned 2 great names there. How about Clint Bowyer?
Yes.
I think he could go to victory lane. Not to mention Jimmy Johnson. We're still waiting for this 48 to break through. I think William Byron could break through. We've seen, young drivers have success here at Michigan. So Kyle Larson, I mean, the list is long of drivers that could win this race that have not won yet this year.
Just right along with Clint Bowyer, you were talking about if they're in the throttle or not, if they can run wide open. Clint Boyer's in a pretty good spot right here. Really no traffic behind him, just one car basically in front of him. You see move to the outside of Kyle Larson, trying to get some clean air in the corner. Look at the draft down the front straightaway, how he's able to gain little bit of trail throttle, just not able to run quite wide open.
And don't you think even if he could, you're just better off to kind of lift a little and make sure the car stays settled? It seems like if you try wide open and it slides, it's a bigger penalty.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised this early in the run that he's already having to lift, right? He's only run a few laps. That surprises me a little bit, and he's not in a big group. But yeah, I think if you try to carry too much throttle in a situation where you need to pull some speed out of it, it will definitely hurt your speed.
So there we see the momentum once again coming up on the back of the 42, but he wasn't able to make that pass. There's the 43 of Bubba Wallace out on the track, and another tweet coming in, another question. And we get it from Andrew Higginbotham. And by the way, I get a lot of tweets from Andrew. Will we see any retaliatory situations from last week's run-ins from Watkins Glen? Who has the most to lose out of the ones that were involved in those altercations?
I don't think you're going to see any retaliation as far as a driver spinning another driver. But I do think that, you're going to have an opportunity to let a guy in or to make a guy's day easier or tougher, and they're going to go out of their way to make it tougher. This is too fast of a track to just send a guy up the banking. Now, a week from now, we go to the Ultimate Bull Ring at Bristol, and I think that's the kind of place where you can just make somebody's life more difficult, not let them in line, give them a few shots into the corner. In today's NASCAR, I don't know if any of them are buddies anymore. You have to be so aggressive with your blocking that I expect Ryan Blaney to race everybody kind of the same way he would race Jimmy Johnson.
And the guy who has the most to lose, to answer the second part of that question, would be Jimmy Johnson. He is right now right on the cut line in 16th in the playoff situation. So he would have the most to lose if there was any retaliating. Marty.
So you're saying there have been paybacks at Bristol, guys? Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes.
Never happened, has it, Rick? Happens all the time. Hey, you saw Bubba Wallace. We kind of got on the shot of him, and he was kind of dragging a little bit. Jeff, the way these teams and these drivers practice now has completely changed. Really, in the last 2 months or so, it's really changed to where you have to be in a pack if you want to learn anything, right? I asked Kevin Harvick about that after that last practice session. I said, that was really racy. He said, it's the only way we can practice now. And you and I were talking about it after that first practice session. They have to be in a pack. Really, if you want to learn anything with this 550 package, as we ride on board with Jimmy Johnson, you must be around other cars to learn something.
Yeah, and Marty, you really do. And we've talked about this for years in NASCAR. Why don't more drivers run in traffic? Because the way the cars used to be, you were better in clean air to learn about your car as you were making changes. But you're never going to be in clean air now. And right here is what you're going to be dealing with all day. So the only way to do it is to get in there and do it. And you see Chase Elliott, on the bottom there. That's what I was talking about earlier. The bottom is going to be open, but can you finish the pass? If not, then they're going to jump up on the outside of you, and you could lose 2 or 3 spots.
The bottom of the restarts here in the spring were so difficult.
Yes.
I expected that as well. You leave the restart zone wide open through 1 and 2, and you just get pinned on the bottom. You have no momentum exiting 2.
And I think Steve, I think that's where you normally, if you're on the bottom, you try to be real aggressive, and make it 3 wide, get in the corner. That may actually work against you.
Yeah.
Right? The bottom lane may actually be better to be patient and not try to be real aggressive, because if you get on that very bottom, it really chokes you down and can kill your momentum. It'll be some interesting decisions that drivers have to make as this race evolves.
Last time by, we saw Jimmy stick his hand out the window. He was practicing coming to pit road. Now it looks as though he's just going to head to the apron. Sammy sent this tweet in. Listening to the 48 radio during practice 2 this morning, JJ was told the goal was to get the sheet and then practice pit road. What does get the sheet mean?
So I assume that means they want him to stop right here to his left. You see other cars parked. You park there, and Goodyear checks your tire temperature, is known as a tire sheet. So they'll let you know the temperature inside, middle, and outside of all 4 tires. As a crew chief, it's important to know which tire on the car has the most temperature, and then what the temperatures look like across the tire. I would make chassis changes, load the car differently, understand how the car is working, and then after you stop on pit road, then you probably run a little bit of pit road speed, kind of accomplish 2 goals. Information gathering, as much information as you can get.
3-time winner at this track, Kyle Larson.
I was expecting a busy week. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. Knoxville Nationals are running this week, and for those that aren't dirt fans, you kind of run all week in their qualifying races. You have to get points, and that's how you make the A-main. And Larson did not have a good qualifying night. The only real option was to go last night, try to qualify, or go early today and start in like the E-main. I like his decision. I'm fine with him going to run those races. I think it's great for him. I think it's a huge race. He's a big dirt fan. Plus, I think reps are reps, and it helps race car drivers. But I love that Kyle Larson said, you know what? Didn't go my way. The dream of running that race this week is probably not going to happen. I'm going to stay here and focus on my 42.
We left that shot with the 48. We saw one of the crew members had those 2 big blue fans in his hands, and just wanted to explain what those blue fans are. They're just incredibly high-powered fans that just blow air. The tires are off now, but you're trying to keep the tires cooled down so that every time you go out, the tire temp is relatively the same. And you'll see these teams use those blowers just to, quite simply, just try to get the heat down as quick as they can. It helps with the air pressure of the tires. And then also, you see if the tire's off, it also helps the components cool down a little bit, so when they're working on it, it's not quite so hot.
The one thing I instantly see is, you see right here, there's that little silver triangle that the team drew on the tire. That's because you can see that shiny streak. That tells me that left rear tire has a rub. And what happens is after you rub it once, you don't know if it's continuing to rub. So you kind of color that triangle in, goes back on the racetrack, and you know if it's still touching. That could be one of the changes they're making. It looks like they're moving some lead, but there's another person underneath the back. Looks like they were moving the track bar. They might be trying to get that left rear tire just a smidge to the right. You want it close, but there you go.
He's remarking it.
Tire guy's going to remark that triangle right there to see if it rubs this next time out. So that's not a huge concern. That's kind of basically standard operating procedure right there, but you do want to get it cleaned up before Sunday.
And it does tell you that you can't go any further. You can't go any further with getting the wheel to move toward the quarter panel.
There's Clint Boyer out on the track, and Clint's continuing to fight for the possibility of being in the playoffs. Right now, he's 15th on the list, only 12 points to the good as far as being above 16th.
So now Clint has really clean racetrack. So let's see what his throttle is like now. Wide open. So that's the difference. So when you're watching, here's a great question. Will the PJ1 affect the racing at all? That's why they put the PJ1 down. We just showed Clint Boyer behind Kyle Larson. He couldn't run wide open because he was behind him. The air was being taken off the car in the corner. Now in clean air, he can run wider. It's not easy. You can see he's working. So the reason they put that PJ1 down is to give the drivers places to go where they're not only handicapped in the corner by losing all of the downforce on the car, they can run multiple grooves. That's the hope of the PJ1. I think it's an opportunity for it to get there. I'd like to have seen it just a touch lower, but we'll have to see as the race evolves. I think we'll learn from the truck race today. We might see the trucks in it, but just widen the racetrack out in the corners to give cars more places to go. That's the reason the PJ1 is there.
Aero Racing Design, thank you for that question. Marty.
And I think we're a little sad when Kyle Larson tweeted out after the first practice the PJ1 has a little less grip currently, because we'd love to see that come in. And to your point, Jeff, I saw several drivers talking to Jay Fabian, the Cup Series director, after that first practice session, and I know more than one of them told him, hey, they agree with you, Jeff. We would love for it to be just a little bit lower, like half a groove lower, if we can get it half a groove lower, and they could spray that in tonight. I don't think they could work the tire dragging in as much, but they could spray the PJ1 in tonight. That would certainly help the racing a little bit. If they could get it just a little bit lower, the drivers would really like that.
And Marty, the only reason that they wouldn't is just the concern that Goodyear wasn't able to test the tire here on that PJ1. So I think there's a little bit of nervousness about how much they're going to put down. That would be the only reason that they wouldn't. You just don't want to tear tires up. You're going way too fast. You don't want to have tire failures here.
Yeah, you mentioned way too fast. We saw on the telemetry of Clint Boyer there, he was over 194 miles an hour when they were entering the turn. So at those speeds, things happen very quickly. Split-second decisions have to be made. Suarez, Austin Dillon.
Interesting to see Austin Dillon and his team. They had a good qualifying effort, but he and Daniel Hemrick both going to have to go to the back tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see how that affects these cars. We've seen those cars qualify well, but not race quite so well. So, can they find a way to get him to drive good enough so he can drive up through the field? It's going to be a tough day for him.
7th and 11th is where Austin Dillon and Daniel Hemrick qualified yesterday, but because of an issue with an alternator, both of them had the same issue. They have to go to the back, and as you mentioned, starting in the back of the field. So JT sends in this question: do you think Austin Dillon and Daniel Hemrick will be able to drive through that field starting 37th and 38th?
Well, define what driving through the field is. Do I think they can drive up inside the top 20? Perhaps. But from there, these two cars haven't consistently run inside the top 10. While Daniel Hemrick had a nice run at Pocono inside the top 10, he ran outside the top 10 here in the spring. I think these cars have been battling for top 15s. I don't think that starting position is going to hinder. Look, it's a 200-lap race, but I don't think it's going to hinder their opportunity to run in the top 15. But they're going to have to execute. They're going to have to find a way to get through. The first 6 or 8 cars might not be too difficult, but when you get inside that top 25, it becomes much more of a challenge.
Well, a little glimpse right there into what they're going to be dealing with. You saw Austin Dillon. He turned into turn 3. Took kind of an early entry, got to the bottom early, and his car just didn't stay. And it just didn't stay where he wanted to stay. It didn't stay in the same lane. So he just quit. So that right there tells me they have work to do. They've got to make their cars drive better so that he can put it wherever he wants to put it.
Xfinity qualifying is starting also on the NBC Sports app. So you have options, you have choices for your NASCAR viewing pleasure today. We'll be right here for you for the remainder of this practice session. A little over 33 minutes to go. And make sure to join the guys there at Mid-Ohio for the Xfinity Series race. That'll be on NBCSN. Then motocross from Unadilla will be at 6, and U.S. Championships, the gymnastics, at 8 o'clock tonight, all on NBCSN.
Talking about paybacks earlier, well, that Mid-Ohio race has created many opportunities for people to want to pay people back. That's been a full contact affair over the years.
Pack starting to form here a bit with Chris Buescher just in front of Bubba Wallace. And those two running in front of the 18 of Kyle Busch. Then Ty Dillon in the 13 here.
Sorry, Rick, I was watching qualifying in Ohio.
Pay attention.
I'll do better.
If you would, please. Austin Theriault, we saw him in the 52 back there. You mentioned William Byron and possibly becoming that 10th different driver. I was asked a question yesterday in an interview. Do you think William Byron can win this year? And I said, well, yeah, he can. But the expectations now of these young drivers, you almost have to go back to a Joey Logano and look at how difficult it was for a young driver to come in and have success. I think expectations have to be a little bit tabled in the sense that a young driver, we don't expect to see a young driver come in at 18, 19 years old and go out and win a race right away.
Well, I think we need to remind everybody how Alex Bowman won that race in Chicago. Because he didn't run outside the top 10 all year long and then pop into a win in Chicago. He had a lot of seconds, a lot of top 5s. He started to show winning speed, winning performances that didn't work out for a multitude of reasons. While I think William Byron has had one of the best summers, we just showed what they've been able to accomplish in the points. I won't say he's knocking on the door of winning yet. Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't go win here in Michigan. But, I mean, Jeff, restarts in the front 2 rows are different than restarts in the back 2 rows. We saw him get penalized for that jump restart a few weeks ago. So I think, he's just filling his notebook on how to close these races out.
21 years old.
Right.
And hey, let's be honest. Hendrick Motorsports hasn't exactly set the world on fire. Right? I mean, they haven't really done, the mile and a half. Alex Bowman won that race, but they just haven't really had the power and the speed that some other teams have. So, young driver, a team not as good as some other teams at the moment. That's not saying they won't be, but they just haven't quite been there. But yeah, I think William Byron I think you put him in position. I think he can get it done. See that move right there they let him make?
Yes.
Look at that. I mean, he drove underneath Bubba Wallace and then carried that momentum all the way and got next to Paul Menard. That's a good handling race car. That's a guy that can just manhandle that car and put it wherever he wants to, and that's going to allow Denny Hamlin to be aggressive, as opposed to what we saw Austin Dillon do. He tried to do that, and his car just didn't stick.
And we're going to continue to look at your tweets, try to answer the questions. Jacob Shockley sent a question directly to Jeff Burton. What was your favorite item to see brought by a fan to get autographed at the racetrack?
Pictures that they've taken.
You and them,
with me and them, or them at a race, something like that. I like to see kind of their lives, the pictures that they've taken. I think those are the coolest.
Anything strange?
Oh, yeah.
Ever had come up that somebody brought that you had to sign?
Silence.
Look at this. This is actually in the infield here. Who are those young guys?
That's a lot of guys that used to be young.
Look at the mustaches on those guys there. There it is. They're out there in the infield.
Looks like we're getting ready to blow out.
The Michigan infield, I think, is a little underrated.
Oh.
It's
amazing.
Like, if you ride around the infield here, Talladega gets so much credit. Watkins Glen gets a little rowdy. So Sunday morning when you ride into the garage area through the infield, I think you're seeing some remnants of an impressive evening. So, look, it's full.
Yeah, look at all the campers. What a great experience for fans to be able to come out and experience racing. A full weekend of fun.
Look at this.
Yes, look at this.
So there's Brad Keselowski, that 2 car. In that first practice, I thought he had a lot of speed. This car looked really fast to me. There's a lot of good cars in this group. Logano, Chase Elliott, William Byron. Talk about somebody can win it. How about Eric Jones? He has had a really good summer. He's starting to build that momentum, isn't he? Where he wouldn't be surprised to see him win a race.
And we're going to go on the clock, chat a little bit about individual drivers. Let's start off with the 32 of Corey LaJoie. And what an exciting weekend he had last weekend. He had Samaritan's Feet on board, raised over $125,000 for that organization, gave up an opportunity for a month's salary so that he could put that charity on the hood and on the car. So applaud Corey LaJoie for that move.
How about Landon Castle? Landon Castle's a fun guy. He's a great follow on social media, by the way. He always has something funny going on. He's one of those young drivers that he's 30 years old. Landon Castle's a really good race car driver, trying to help get this team more solid footed underneath them. But
when the clock stops, you don't have to stop talking, Jeff. It's okay.
Shot clock, man.
We got down
Shot
to
clock.
zero.
No. That's how much time you have.
I'm not getting a penalty.
That's right. Double zeros, there's no play. 17 right here of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. You see come to pit road. When you look at Ricky, he was 8th at Michigan all the way back in 2017. That's only top 10 here. So a driver that has had a lot of success at the restrictor plate tracks of old, you have to think maybe this new package, this new rules may suit him here at Michigan.
Michael McDowell his 34 car. He ran really well at Watkins Glen last week. I don't think they got to finish. They didn't finish as well as they ran. Michael McDowell, he finished 16th, but Michael McDowell and this guy, they were really, really good last week at Watkins Glen, running in front of a lot of good cars.
Michael McDowell, an established road racer. We've mentioned a lot about Eric Jones and the successes he has had as of late. The name that keeps popping up with Eric Jones is Christopher Bell, because he drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. Christopher Bell, such success in the Xfinity Series. They're wondering, where will Christopher Bell go? And everyone continues to point at Eric Jones in that ride because he hasn't won yet this year.
Penalty. You got a penalty.
Penalty talked too long. Well, how about last week's winner, Chase Elliott in the 9, went back to Watkins Glen, the site of his first ever Cup victory, goes to victory lane again. And then I think the 9 gets most improved yesterday. They came off the track almost a second off in practice, if you can believe it, but ended up qualifying outside row 3 in the 6th position. Big improvements out of the 9 so far this weekend.
Looking at the 6 of Ryan Newman, had the opportunity to sit down with Ryan yesterday and talk to him about the way racing is going. And he, like every other driver, was able to voice his opinion. He said, you know what, more and more, I am having to look in the mirror as opposed to look out the windshield in this style of racing, which is difficult.
That's impressive. Rick. You did good. You did good. You don't have to brag, but you did good. Here's an example of, I think he thought he was going to have some clean air to drive underneath a 34, and the 34 actually went to the bottom. 42 of Kyle Larson. It's been covered so many times, the success he's had at this racetrack. A 3-time winner at Michigan. And you have to ask yourself, even though the track race is completely different, I still think that success here brings a little confidence, Marty. I think Kyle Larson always enjoys coming back to the Irish Hills.
On time and a toss, Steve. Very impressive. How about Brad Keselowski with the pole yesterday? And love what he told us on NASCAR America Fan Friday yesterday. I asked him, did you ever at any point put too much pressure on yourself coming to Michigan? He said, I still do. A win here would mean everything to him. He's finished second here a couple of times, never been able to get the W. He might have the car to do it tomorrow.
Marty went over a lot of time.
He's in the garage. He has a free pass.
And I said the wrong word, so that's why I did that.
Well, a wrong word and an extended talk. That's a big penalty.
Hey, this is my time, and you're 5 seconds into it. Matt Tifft, what a great story. Obviously, Matt Tifft, about 3 years ago, had brain surgery, a tumor, and he was able to overcome that out there in a race car, living his dream right now here in Michigan.
Well, it was already covered. The 8 of Daniel Hemrick had great speed yesterday in qualifying. That time, though, disqualified for basically a fake alternator, trying to get a little more horsepower on that engine. He'll have to start from the back. Had a great run inside the top 10 at Pocono. We talked to him yesterday in NASCAR Fan Friday, and he said he feels coming back to the tracks for the second time has really helped him out.
How about Kurt Busch? Kurt Busch and this team got that win a few weeks ago. You talked about who can win. What about Kurt Busch for Sunday? Finished second here in June. His top 6 in the last 3 Michigan races. I mean, Kurt Busch is hungry. Kurt Busch has something he wants to prove. You know, he did it a few weeks ago, but I'm telling you, this guy right here, man, you give him a shot, he'll put it in victory lane.
So Kurt Busch is the most recent of the Busch brothers to win, and I'm sure Kyle Busch wants to change that statistic. Got into a little bit of a squabble last week with 2 different drivers, one being William Byron, the other being the 43 of Bubba Wallace. So when you ask if are there going to be any paybacks or retaliation, probably not here, but I'm guessing Kyle Busch will have to watch his back at Bristol.
Chris Buescher had a chance to spend some time with Chris Buescher yesterday. He's excited about what this team's been doing. They've been quietly climbing themselves up in the points. They've done a nice job. 26 years old. He's talking about how he started racing with his family, racing legend cars. A team like this, could they get themselves in the right position late in the race and steal a win?
Making his 3rd start in the Cup Series, Austin Theriault made his debut back in New Hampshire, finishing 31st. Actually ran into him at a restaurant in Pocono. He told us how excited he was to be on the racetrack on Sundays. He won here an ARCA race in 2014. Always good to come back to a track you've won at.
That was a penalty on that last play.
I thought thought so too.
It was a penalty.
Actually,
And won an ARCA race that deserved to be covered. I am very disappointed we didn't get to talk about Spencer Boyd making his Cup Series debut today in the 53, but he's not on the racetrack. We would have covered him.
All right, but I'm glad you got that in.
That's a fun day, isn't it?
500
Cup
start.
race.
Yeah, for the guy in the number 19 here. Martin Truex Jr. He chases after his teammate Kyle Busch. Those two winningest drivers right now in the Monster Energy Cup Series.
Look at this action. A little shove down the back stretch.
See, that's right there is what I'm talking about. Daniel Hemrick's like, I got a good run, I got to move. Goes to the bottom and lost 2 spots.
Look at what happened there. Kyle Busch was like he was shot out of a cannon as he came into that turn because of the help from Martin Truex Jr.
But here's what happens. He won't be able to get away. So at the front of that field, though, Kyle Busch has 5 car lengths. But watch Truex and Larson run the 18 back down. I really think that's the key. It is. I'm not sure what we're going to see for domination out of the leader. I don't confident it's not going to look like Joey Logano, but for sure the leader is not going to get away. I mean, right there in one set of corners, Martin Truex Jr. has taken that gap all the way down to 1 car length.
I think we're going to see a lot of guessing tomorrow. Like what lane. So they're not as aggressive today as they're going to be tomorrow. So tomorrow, I think what you would see from Kyle Busch is instead of giving Martin Truex the bottom, I think he'll run through there one time on the bottom, then run the middle, then run the bottom, then run the top. Just keep Martin Truex guessing. Where's the clean air? Where's it going to be? That way, you know, you just try to mess with him all the time. You saw right there, he just ran the top. He didn't care if he got past because now he's learning. Now he's in second. Now he's going to understand how his car drives behind other people. But tomorrow, it's not about learning. It's about track position and trying to keep it.
Executing. Marty.
Hey, Rick, we see a lot of action and give and take on the racetrack. How about here in the garage area? Daniel Suarez pulling out. Look, just inches from him is Ryan Newman, and that's how it is here at the Michigan garage area. It's been like that forever. So you really have to work, Steve, with another team in the garage area to kind of say, hey, let's kind of work around each other. There's really not even room for the jack to be out beside another car. So it's tough to work in this Michigan garage area. And I bet Chad Canals and the 88 team, they're very happy because right beside Chad, as I mentioned with the 24, is Alex Bowman, the 88. So when your teammate's beside you, it works a little bit better, doesn't it, Steve? But this is a tight garage area here at Michigan.
Well, the best thing to do is be high enough in points you have your own garage. Because you're down in the low-rent district right now. If you move over to the luxury side, Chase Elliott has his own garage area. Kevin Harvick has his own garage area. So when they divvy them out by points, a lot of motivation. My team actually used to cheer if we had been high enough in the points coming here. They knew they'd have their own team. And if you ran bad at Watkins Glen, they'd be waiting for you, be like, this is your fault. You messed this up.
Coming up this afternoon, make sure to tune in on NBCSN for Xfinity Series Racing from Mid-Ohio. That's right. The road course racing stretch for the Xfinity Series continuing at Mid-Ohio. Then it's Lucas Oil Motocross Series from Unadilla at 6. Gymnastics U.S. Championships at 8 o'clock again on NBCSN. Riding along, we saw that helmet cam from Jimmy Johnson.
Who's from Unadilla?
Unadilla would be...
The thriller from Unadilla. David Reagan. Man.
David Reagan. I was thinking Legends in my head. Legend car, David Reagan. Look at the aggressive move there by the 42, getting out of line. Put this between the 18-19. Side drafting.
And get that right front fender on his left rear quarter panel, trying to slow him down and get as far away from him as you can so that you can clear him. That was done. See if we can return the favor.
Yeah, he said, by the way, I want to be back up front again. And here comes the 1 of Kurt Busch into the picture. 48 of Jimmy Johnson. And Kevin Harvick in the 4. I think that's what fans want to see. I think that's what...
Suarez in the wall.
Daniel Suarez popped out of line, got up high, and went for a major slide. I think he made a little contact with the right rear quarter panel.
Left rear's down.
Yeah, the left rear is down, so that makes me think that was a problem.
So I saw him kind of pop out of line in the middle of the corner, and I just think he was going to go up and give it a try. Look behind the 48.
Right there, he is out of control.
And then watch this slide. Oh, boy. Wow. A little bit of damage. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the left rear probably was the cause.
Wow, look at that. Let me tell you something. That's a great job of driving.
Amazing.
That thing is
Hey,
round.
You know how earlier today you said you might have wrecked it if you were the 42? You would absolutely wreck the 41.
Look at his wheel. Look at his left front tire. So
I don't think I would have been able to get out of the car.
See that shot again. Drivers never quit driving, right? So he did an incredible job of not getting that thing turned back around the wrong way. So look at his left front tire when we get a shot of it. See where it's turned? It's turned to the right? He's trying to save it. Now look at it. He's starting to get it back around. Immediately he's turning it back left. If he had to turn that thing back left, he would have gone and smacked the right front and would have definitely destroyed that car. That's really, really good driving right there. That is not easy to do.
And when you grow up in the north or the Midwest where you have snow, people learn that kind of stuff, because when the back end does kick around, or what they teach you, well, you steer toward where the back end's going. You want to make sure that the front wheels are going the same direction as the back end of the car. So amazing what he's able to do and what these guys are doing. I mentioned that, but at the same time, he's doing that at 182 miles an hour is what they were going in the corners.
Yeah, that's just a really good job by Daniel.
So now it's the question of what's going to do more damage. So you look right here. That's what you talked about. I mean, look at that thing. It's full turn to the right.
Yes.
And like you said, the problem is if you stay there long enough, you're going to drive head first into the wall.
Yeah.
Now he's straightened it up as he's sliding.
And listen, to get the wheel turned back that quickly is, I mean, that's not just a little, that is like hand action, quick moving it back around.
So now he's creeping into the garage area, because now the concern is, do you stop, let him hook it up to a wrecker? How much damage is that flat left rear tire doing? The big concern, so remember, there's no ride heights. So even before the flat tire, this car was basically sitting on the racetrack. So they're very difficult to load on. You don't care when they're wrecked. You pull them up on the flatbed, you bring them in, and you race another day. But this car's in pretty good shape. You don't want to damage it anymore.
And this is what the team is waiting for. They're waiting for this shot right here. They want to see what the damage looks like. This is the first time they've really got to look at it.
Zoom in. Let's see that right rear quarter panel. The deck. That's what the team's looking at.
Little wrinkle
I
there.
see you guys coming up the pit wall there. If you go down further by where that red box is here, where that opening is, at the end of the concrete, you probably can get to it there.
Interested to see if they repair that or not. Now, years ago, that was an automatic repair.
And obviously, with the issue there, Daniel Suarez joining these drivers right on the bubble and 23 points back coming into this race. So that playoff pressure mounting, continuing to mount. Marty.
Yeah, Billy Scott literally is standing beside me watching my monitor right now and kind of assessing the damage on the car. He said he would like to get that fixed. That was actually lap 2 on a brand new set of tires. So he's assessing the damage as we're watching. There you go. Billy's watching that monitor. So he's assessing the damage, watching our monitor. He said would love to get that fixed if he could. Again, that lap 2, they had put on a brand new set of sticker tires there to go out and make their run. So Daniel Suarez is going to limp it here to pit road, put a new left rear tire on, and then get it to the garage area. They'll get a full assessment at that point. We talk about Michigan natives. How about Eric Jones? And by every statistical category, we have Eric Jones right now awfully quick. The fastest overall, fastest on 5-lap average, fastest on 10-lap average. And he admitted to us yesterday, just like Brad Keselowski, puts a little extra pressure on himself being here in Michigan. And I love what he's done for years. He actually goes home to Byron, Michigan, stays there. The only night he has not done that was last night. When Steve, what'd he say? Because that 8:30 practice, I want to be there ready to go. But tonight he'll be back at home in Byron, Michigan, staying with his mom. But before he does that, he's going to go to his quarter midget track where he started his career. Going to go visit those kids tonight. So cool to see that Eric Jones giving back to the local community and buying into our My Track, My Roots program. So he'll be at the quarter midget track tonight if you want to find him.
And I actually liked that he stayed at the racetrack last night. Well, I think it's a great tradition going home. 8:30 practice this morning. And kind of routine. You hear football teams stay at a hotel even when they play at home to stay in the routine. I think for someone like Eric Jones, who's used to staying in his motorhome, getting up and preparing a certain way to try to, stay consistent. Back to the 41, Billy Scott has to make a decision for a backup car for a multitude of reasons. But one big thing is if he goes to backup, he has to start at the back. They qualified 11th. So you have to decide, hey, what's your backup car? What kind of quality is it? Does it have all of the new updates, upgrades that this primary car has? So we'll have to keep our eye on the 41 and what they choose to do.
Well, and it didn't, I mean, as a layman just looking at what was going on with this car, it didn't look bad. But one of the biggest things is that this is a very aero-sensitive racetrack. I mean, you got to be tightened up. We've talked about so many times saying, you know, how you can dial a car in. Well, the body guys have done that all week long getting here, and now all of a sudden you've got this. Can they fix that?
Yeah, so the quarter panel doesn't bother me. If the deck lid is in its standard location, that's a good foundation. You could put the sheet metal around it. Let's listen in to the 88 of Alex Bowman.
I don't think it's bad. It's just going to depend if it flicks off or not. I'm not really building runs at the end of the straightaway like I would like to be, but if handling comes into play and it flicks off when it's hotter, I think we're going to be really good. Yeah, it definitely drives really well.
So that's the question. Do you want the car to drive well? Do you want it to be fast? It's hard to have both. You see the averages on the left side of your screen. Eric Jones leading the 5-lap and the 10-lap average. Bowman, though, right there in third, fourth on the 10-lap. So if it drives well and looking at the average lap time, I think Alex Bowman must feel pretty good about his car. And I think, you know, that win from Chicago, guaranteed place in the playoffs, that helps the team so much. The pressure to perform is always there, but Rick, unlike his teammate Jimmy Johnson, the pressure of the playoffs, it's not there anymore. He knows he's in.
And they can do different things as far as strategy because they know that they are already in the playoffs. Marty.
Well, the 41 team down here meeting right now. And remember, Steve, you brought up a great point. They were in the same exact position in this race last year with the backup not having all the updates that the primary had. Remember that? Daniel got on the wall a little bit, very much like today, and they decided to stay with the primary. In fact, Daniel wound up staying late and coming early to help the team with the repairs. So that was when he was with the 19 last year. I should make that correction. That was the 19, obviously, last year. Now, Daniel in this position here today. Billy Scott talking it over with Greg Zipadelli, trying to figure out if they want to go to the backup car or to the primary, or stay with the primary car, and they're making that decision right now. Some guys from the fabrication shop over here as well, so very tough decision for this race team. The deck lid, Steve, to your point, looks like it's in the right spot. It would really be quarter panel damage they would have to fix, and a little bit on the tail as well.
I saw a lot of positive head nods from the fabricator, like, yep, I can fix that. I had this part, I had this piece. So we'll have to see what they do. And in the end, I know this is going to surprise you. You also don't get to make the decision on your own. NASCAR has to approve the use of the backup. I know that is something that's not talked about very much, but as a crew chief, you can't just say, yep, let's get the other one out. If that was the case when you had a car that was really awful all weekend, I would just have my driver hit the wall a little bit in practice and unload the other one. You have to have enough damage for NASCAR to deem it necessary to go to a backup car.
When you look at the impressive numbers here for Eric Jones in this practice, the fastest lap, the best 5-lap average, and the best 10-lap average.
This team's certainly headed in the right direction. Eric Jones has been on fire this summer.
Yeah, Eric Jones, last 4 races, top 5 finishes for Eric. And the other Michigan driver in the field, another Michigan driver, is Brad Keselowski.
Never won here, right?
Has never won here. Never has a Michigan-born racer won in the Cup Series at Michigan.
That's crazy. Well, there's a good chance that'll change on Sunday. I think this 2-car is fast.
2-car very fast. Let's listen into their communications.
The 48, I think I'm laying, like if you imagine a cushion at the bottom side of the PJ 1 and 2, I think that helped him quite a bit. Not get in it, but right to the cushion of it. It's pushed right up to the edge of it. Yep, copy. 18 and 19 didn't lose nothing the first half of the corner by arcing with their right sides in it, but they could never defend down. They got trapped in it. Fascinating.
Good information about where people are running and when they run somewhere, what it does.
Saw a little bit of bump there out of the 17 Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Those guys working through it a little bit. Now this track was repaved, a handful of years ago, and I remember Marcus Ambrose coming here and setting the new track record about 209 miles an hour. I think it was something crazy speed that they had. But it looks as though there are starting to be a little more bumps. It's not as smooth as it was back when they repaved. And Marty, what's the update now on Daniel Suarez's car?
Well, a couple of quick updates on the Daniel Suarez situation. You see him walking away talking to Goodyear officials. They did confirm it was a puncture in the left rear. That's what caused the accident for Daniel Suarez in the first place. I checked in with Billy Scott, and he said they are going to try and stick with the primary car if they can. You see Daniel looking over that left rear tire right now where the puncture is circled, and they're going to try and stick with the primary car. And Steve, we've seen teams do this a couple of times. They're going to take the car over to the optical scanning station, over the Hawkeye system, have it scanned to see how far the body is off. If it's kind of within tolerance, what they think it is, they're going to stick with the primary car. If it's way off, something maybe they don't see, maybe something that the Hawkeye would pick up that they don't see visually, then they'll go to the backup car. But right now the plan is to stick with the primary car and make repairs to that as long as it's not way out of whack.
So the difficulty in repairing a race car at the racetrack is unlike building a house. Level doesn't mean anything. When you build a house, you put a wall up, it's 90 degrees to the surface, level. It's level, it's plumb, you can build to it. There's nothing level or plumb about a race car, nothing at all. So to fix the sheet metal, you have to find a foundation. It can be the roof, it can be the deck lid, it can be the rocker panel down at the side skirt. Something, though, has to be in the correct location. You take it over to the scanning station, you scan it. In my mind, the deck lid has to be right. If the deck lid is right, I can get a quarter panel and a tailpiece on it, no problem. If the deck lid is moved, I'm done. I'm going to get the other car. I don't think you have enough time here at the racetrack to be able to measure all the way back to the roof and try to get the deck lid reset. I mean, you have to have something to work off of.
And that precision is because it'll have to later go through technical inspection to make sure everything's in the right place. Is that correct?
Yeah, they don't get a free pass just because they hit the wall. Their responsibility is to present a car for tomorrow's race that is within the tolerance that every other car has to meet.
Marty.
Well, we allowed Daniel Suarez to kind of process all that information. Probably good to know that the left rear tire had a puncture in it, but how quickly did it go on you, Daniel?
Well, the reason why I was a little confused is it was because my car was free. I knew that the car was free, and we all knew that the car was free, but the way that I got loose in corner 1 and 2 wasn't normal. I mean, it was extremely aggressive. And then they told me I had a left rear tire flat. I didn't know why, because actually I never locked the tire. I never touched the brakes. I was always trying to drive the car. So no surprise that we went through something and the tire went flat probably before we actually started spinning out. But the good part is that the car is not that bad. I feel like I did a decent job trying to keep the car out of the wall, but we'll see. Hopefully we got a little bit of a break and we can fix it.
There you go. Daniel's going to go stick with the team. They have now pushed the car over to the optical scanning station. Again, they're going to try and stick with his primary here on the 41.
Let the work begin.
So Kyle Busch right here. There's a group of cars in front of Kyle Busch, and they're side by side. So right now, Kyle Busch sees this, right? And this is an opportunity to gain a ton of ground because he can really get a big tow right here. You see those cars side by side, you know you're going to get a big tow. The lap before that, though.
When you jumped out of your seat?
Yes, so watch right here. So Boyer going to the bottom of the racetrack, I don't know if he had some kind of a problem, but he is stopping. And Kyle's like, what's going on? Yeah. I mean, that caught Kyle Busch by surprise. Caught me by surprise. I'm watching it live. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're getting a wreck.
And they didn't. A little over 2 minutes to go in this final practice, and teams and drivers trying to learn all they can for tomorrow afternoon's race.
Look where Kyle is. He put those right sides in that PJ1 on corner entry. Now on corner exit. Let's see what that does down the back straightaway. Does that give him some momentum? Does that help his back straightaway speed? It's about as high as I've seen anybody run. And trying it again.
Yeah, the 22, he stayed pretty even. Now he's all the way up into it.
Look what it did. It was able to pop the outside of the 22 by doing that. Now the door's open. Right? So now the spotters have seen that. And I think you will see other people do it. And by the way, there's a truck race coming up next, and they're probably watching this too.
How how long until you venture up there, Jeff, as far as your tires? Because your tires are going to wear a little bit. They'll wear to the point where when you get behind somebody, if you've got to get out of the gas, but you're saying that's another option where they can go up there and maybe not get out of the gas and run that high line.
That's right. There he is, trying it again. You know, it worked for him. And it worked for him a few laps, right? 2 corners that worked for him. So he's going to keep trying it. He's going to see what it does. And that gave him a big run down the front straightaway. Not quite as big as he was hoping for, but again, you're going to jump up there on the outside. You can see it's not like it's the center of the corner speed. It doesn't help him there because it's a long way around the racetrack. But right here is where it helps him. It's where it gets a big toe down the back straightaway.
Will he stay up there through 3 and 4? Well, he's going to dive to the bottom of the racetrack.
Well, here's what gets someone like Kyle Busch so frustrated is he feels like he's faster than Chris Buescher in the 37, but how do you accomplish the pass? This is the same thing that I think the fans love, right? Make it very difficult for Kyle Busch. We don't want to see him just drive by the 37 and drive off, so he worked both sides. Let's see if he goes back to try to get that run.
That is going to do it as far as time for this final practice for the Monster Energy Cup Series from Michigan International Speedway. We mentioned not too long ago Eric Jones and what he was able to do in this practice session. The Michigan native looking to become the first ever Michigan-born driver to win here at Michigan International Speedway. This is also a big manufacturer's bragging rights race because you're so close to Motor City, Detroit, and all the manufacturers wanting to have those bragging rights of winning right here in their backyard. It's Eric Jones and the car being attended to by that crew. You see, as far as speed goes, Eric Jones was at the top of the charts. Alex Bowman, Chicago winner, there in second. Kevin Harvick, Austin Dillon, Boyer, all in the top 5. Again, make sure to join us on NBCSN 3 o'clock, the Xfinity Series Racing from Mid-Ohio. Then at Unadilla, the Lucas Oil Motocross Series and Gymnastics tonight at 8.